Welcome back to the Communication Mastery podcast with me, Mark Burlinson. This is where we unleash the power of understanding to build bridges and not boxes, because we understand that communication is the oxygen of teamwork. We all need communication to thrive in life and work. And in this podcast, we want to increase your communication mastery so that we can all learn to adapt to one another and be effective in our communication. So thanks for being here. Let's learn together. Welcome back. This is the fourth and final of our C-Suite questions and answers series. And today we're going to look at communication and performance, because the whole area of performance is closely tied to communication in our businesses. And I've got, I think, 5 questions for us on this episode. And the first one is a doozy. How does communication directly impact our company's bottom line? I hear this quite often. Executives are tempted to think they need to focus on lots of other things besides communication because those have more impact on the company's bottom line. But actually, you'd be surprised how important communication is to your profitability and your cash flow even as well. The first thing I'd say about that is that communication really affects employee productivity and efficiency, because poor communication really leads to misunderstandings, it leads to having to do rework, it leads to wasted time, and it directly increases your operational costs. So companies with effective internal communication can see up to 25% higher productivity. That's not just me making up a number. That comes from McKinsey, who should, of course, know what they're talking about. So effective internal communication can really make a difference to your productivity. If you have clear messaging, then it reduces meeting overload. It means that you can make more confident decisions. It improves output. You get rid of email clutter. You can get rid of misaligned priorities. You get a greater sense of alignment. All of that from a clearer messaging, clearer communication. Employee productivity and efficiency, of course, is one of the key things that affects the company's bottom line. But then if you look outside the company to your customers, communication really has a big impact also on customer retention and also customer experience. And those two, of course, are closely connected, because the way your company communicates with your customers really directly affects their loyalty. It affects their lifetime value. It affects the customer retention rate. If I think of experiences in my own life where a company hasn't appeared to be interested in my business, and I'll often go somewhere else. But when a company takes the time to engage with me in an intelligent and focused way, that really makes a difference. You're going to be loyal to that company. You're going to continue to do business. Here's another study that I read, and I apologize, I didn't write down where it was from, but 86% of customers are willing to pay more for a better experience, which is often tied to clear and helpful communication. So poor communication in customer support will often lead to bad reviews, and also it can lead to lost revenue because people read those reviews, and that will affect who does business with your company. If you have transparent messaging, particularly around pricing, transparent pricing policies as well, that will reduce disputes, it'll reduce refund requests, it'll reduce hesitancy to even consider purchasing in the first place. So the way that you communicate with your customers, again, has a huge effect on your profitability and the company's bottom line. It affects sales and revenue growth as well, because if you have effective sales communication, then you can shorten the sales cycle. You can increase conversion rates. So companies with a strong sales communication strategy often achieve higher close rates, but also larger deal sizes. They've got it down to an art to connect with the customer, not just to read a script, not just to go through the standard steps. But if you can have a well-communicated value proposition that helps to differentiate you from your competitors, then that's really going to increase your pricing power. It's going to increase your conversion rates as well. It's important to have sales staff who are skilled in quickly connecting with different communication styles, and they can see higher lead conversion rates. This is where the Communication IQ profile can help tremendously. The body of knowledge in Communication IQ has helped so many sales professionals adapt to different customers and different leads to be able to give them what they need. Some clients and some customers, some leads need an emotional connection. Others need a cognitive one. Some just need action. Take me straight to the bottom line. What's it going to cost? But unless you can figure out what kind of customer you're interacting with quickly, you may lose that sale because you're not able to adapt. So your sales and revenue growth is closely tied to communication. The communication is also important when you get to reputation management and particularly in a crisis. And if you're listening to this episode, go back to the previous episode where we talk in depth about crisis and reputation management in the way of communication. Also, communication within the company really affects your employee retention and engagement. A company with a high employee engagement is going to be 23% more profitable than a company with poor employee engagement. That statistic comes from Gallup. And so poor communication leads to employee disengagement, leads to high turnover, leads to expensive hiring cycles, and every one of those things impact your company's bottom line. Employees who feel heard, who feel understood, are much more motivated, they're much more innovative, they're much more aligned with your company's goals, and all of those things will increase your profit. So there are also some additional areas of impact to communication in, I suppose, investor confidence, the way you communicate with your stockholders, your shareholders, but also there's a legal and a compliance risk reduction factor in your communication as well, because communication isn't just a soft skill, it's a business driver. And any company that prioritizes clear, strategic communication is going to see higher profits and stronger customer loyalty, reduced costs, better reputation, higher employee engagement and retention. And all of those things directly impact the bottom line. You maybe have been surprised by some of those things, but they're all important in the business world. Here's our second question. How can I improve communication in a hybrid or remote work environment? Obviously, in today's climate, there's a lot of employees, at least part-time, working remotely or in a hybrid model. And there are a number of things that you need to take account of for communication in that setting, because it's different from the standard everybody show up at the same time in the same place model that we used to have. The first thing that you need to focus on is clarity. So you need to set expectations and also use the right tools to keep everybody connected and communicating clearly. So you want to establish some clear norms around communication. So for your company, it'll be different for different companies, but you need to have a clarity on when do we use email to communicate rather than chat or video call. When are the circumstances that we would use those different models of communication, those different tools? But also, you need to encourage concise and structured messaging so that there's a reduction in misunderstanding or misinterpretation. A lot of companies these days are using asynchronous tools, things where you don't have to respond immediately, because that can increase distraction when you're working remotely. But project management software, there's a lot of it around these days. Tools like Asana or Monday.com are very helpful to keep everyone aligned without interrupting their workflow in real time. And then it's important that you have clear definition of response time expectations. So, maybe if it's a chat message, you need a response within a few hours. If it's an email, you need a response before end of day, those kinds of things. Again, your parameters will be different and you adjust them to your circumstances, but to establish and be clear about those expectations is the first place to begin in a hybrid environment. And then the second thing to pay close attention to is the sense of connection, because that's the thing that gets lost most easily in a remote work or a hybrid environment. So you're fostering engagement, you're fostering feedback. So you want to hold regular team check-ins. You have a mix of structured meetings and informal touch points so that you establish a rhythm to both of those. And then use video calls strategically. so that they'd be maybe mandatory for an important discussion, but optional for routine updates. You don't have to join this call if you have nothing fresh to add, or whatever. You can also create some sort of open forum for feedback, so that there maybe is a Slack channel where people can just bring feedback to the leadership. Or maybe there's some sort of office hours function where the executive leadership make themselves available, or the management teams make themselves available to their folks that they're supervising at a specific time. There's a 30-minute slot at the beginning of the day, maybe, or maybe it's 20 minutes after lunch, or whatever works for you. But establish those office hour slots where people can give feedback and check in when they need to. And then, as much as you can, do in-person meetups from time to time so that you're encouraging team bonding. Or if you can't do in-person meetups, at least do a virtual meetup. Figuring out ways to connect people on a level that's more than just the tasks that they're working on, where they can interact with one another, so that you're creating that sense of connection, even though you're not all physically in the same space. And then the third area to answer that hybrid or remote environment would be the culture that you foster. You want to promote trust, and you want to promote inclusivity in your work models. So transparent communication where the leaders are sharing updates openly and regularly. But also making sure that the employees who are working hybrid or are working remote have equal access to information and opportunity. So you rather than having the company notice board like we used to have in an office, you're having some kind of team online function to replace that. And then it's important to recognize achievements publicly. So when you do have your regular all team meetings, online or team chats, have regular shout outs, acknowledging achievements, acknowledging progress. And then it's important that your managers be retrained or retooled in the remote work setting. Because remote leadership skills are rather different than in-person leadership skills. So they need to emphasize active listening more than they would do in an environment where there's a greater sense of interaction. They need to emphasize empathy more, because that's easily lost when you're working remotely. So those are three areas: clarity, connection, and culture, that will help you to promote communication in a hybrid environment. American business wastes billions of dollars every year on miscommunication. If you're ready to change that trend, invest in Communication IQ today, because it will give you a great return in terms of employee alignment, retention, customer engagement, profitability, sales outcomes. All of those areas will grow as you understand the science of communication. So go to my website at markburlinson.com, click on the business button, and let's have an introductory chat today about how I can help your business be more productive by enhancing communication. Next question, we'll deal with this one fairly briefly, but it's what tools and technologies can enhance internal communication efficiency? I think in the area of messaging and collaboration that we touched on in the last question, Slack is a great tool for that. Microsoft Teams also works very well. They provide real-time messaging, but also file sharing and integration with other tools that you may be using. There's another one that I came across the other day called Twist, which is an asynchronous messaging system for Teams, so that there's fewer disruptions. That's a good one. And then there's an email program called Spark for Teams that allows collaboration on emails. And then you can assign and delegate emails within the team and then follow up after. I like that one as well. So that would be messaging and collaboration tools. I think we're all familiar with video conferencing tools and virtual meeting tools. Zoom is good. Microsoft Teams also. Both of those have very reliable video calls. They have recording and screen sharing and even AI transcripts now. Google Meet is a little more simple, but it's integrated with Google Workspace if you're using that. And then again, another one that I don't know a great deal about, but I found it the other week. It's called Around. and it reduces the fatigue of video calls because it's a sort of non-intrusive video chat. So it's more lightweight, and that can be helpful in some settings. So maybe check that out if that sounds like it's applicable to your setting. Project management, task management, that's an important area for internal communication. We've already mentioned previously Asana and Monday.com. There's another one that does a similar thing called ClickUp. That's another good one to look into. All of those would cover assigning tasks to different people, keeping track of deadlines, tracking progress, those kinds of things. If you're more of a Kanban style of workplace where you like to use Kanban boards and visual organization, then I think Trello has really cornered the market in being a valuable tool in that area. And then there's another, I think it's a little newer, a tool called Notion, and that's a mix of a kind of a wiki setup with notes and project management combined. That's another good one for task management. Sharing documents and sharing knowledge, that's another whole area that technology can help us with. Google Drive and OneDrive, I would say, would be pretty much equivalent in their cloud storage for collaboration. And then there's a tool called Confluence, which is a sort of centralized knowledge base for your company and all your internal documentation. Find everything in one place. That's a good one as well. Notion also has a collaboration and documentation space within it that I mentioned previously. And then it's important to get employee feedback and have your employees engaged. And there are several tools I want to recommend here as well. 15.5 is great for continuous feedback and tracking performance at the same time. Then there's one I found called Culture Amp, which is more for employee surveys and insights on engagement. That's a good tool for that. And then Lattice is a great one for goal setting as well as feedback. And then you can use that with performance reviews. So that's another tool that helps your employees to feel more engaged, but also for you to be able to track who's tracking and who's not, who needs more attention in real time. So those are some tools and technologies that can enhance internal communication. Next question is, how do I hold my managers accountable for clear and effective communication? Obviously, very important that the middle layers of management within a company are accountable and are effective in their communication. It's no good if the executive team is communicating well and then it gets lost in the middle. So the first thing to do is to set clear expectations for your managers. You want to define what effective communication looks like. Is it timely updates? Is it more to do with the clarity of your messaging? Is it to do with responsiveness? Or is it to do with alignment with the executive leadership's goals? And you need to establish communication protocols. So when do we use meetings? When do we use emails? When can we use asynchronous tools like Slack? Those three different things have massive impact on employee engagement. If you use meetings too much, employees are disengaged. If you use email only, employees are disengaged. If everything's asynchronous, then you don't get the chance to see how everyone's doing in real time. All of those things work together if you have the protocols in place to establish when do we have a meeting, when can it be an email, and when do we stay asynchronous. And then it's important to train your managers in active listening and in giving constructive feedback so that they can, particularly so they can engage the remote teams or the hybrid teams that are part of your company. But it works just as well for in-person as well. Active listening doesn't come easily to us. Too often we listen with what we're going to say in response as our primary focus. We miss a lot of what's being said because of that. But also when we give feedback, it is important that that feedback be constructive and tailored to the employee. And that has to be trained in order for managers to be effective. You also want to measure and monitor managers' communication effectiveness. So you can use 360-degree feedback from the employees. They can give feedback anonymously on the manager's communication skills, but you can also review the efficiency of meetings. Are they productive? Do they have clear agendas? Do they have clear follow-ups? What feedback are you getting from the employees that this particular manager that you're assessing? Get the feedback from the employees will give you the insights you need there, so that there is that regular monitoring. And then reinforce accountability so that your managers can receive coaching, but also receive consequences if their communication needs to be improved. So you're going to regularly check in with your managers and discuss their communication challenges, but also the improvements that you're seeing as they address those challenges. You want to provide coaching or training for managers who struggle with clear messaging. That may be to do with their preferred communication styles. They need to learn to operate in some of the other communication languages. But you can also tie their communication effectiveness to their performance reviews and their leadership evaluations. Make communication a key performance indicator in your company, because it's vital, as we said earlier, to your company's bottom line. And then you can recognize and reward managers who demonstrate strong and transparent communication. So I would say, obviously I'm biased, but one of the most important and valuable things you can do is to train all of your managers in communication IQ, because that equips them to lead diverse teams, to adapt to all 7 communication styles so that they can engage every one of their employees, whatever their profiles are. Okay, that's enough on managers. I think the other thing that I want to address here is, how can I measure the effectiveness of our communication strategies? And there are 3 different ways to do this. You need to be quantitative, so you need some data-driven insights, but you also need to have qualitative feedback. So that's employee feedback and also leadership perspectives. And then thirdly, you need to have an eye on behavioral indicators. That's the observed actions and results that you're seeing from communication. So let's talk about quantitative for a moment first. You can use employee surveys to give you a measure of the clarity and the transparency and the engagement with your communication strategy. But you can also monitor, and your IT team can help you with this, you can monitor the message open and engagement rates on whatever system that you're using, whether it's email or email newsletters, or whether it's a Slack or Teams message response rate. And then you need to measure your meeting efficiency as well. So measure attendance, take attendance at meetings, measure participation. Also, don't forget to measure the completion of follow-up activities, follow-up actions from each meeting. All of those provide you with clear metrics. And then you can also measure response times or resolution times. How long does it take from raising an issue or mentioning a problem or receiving an inquiry? How long does it take for that to reach a resolution or a response? Those are quantitative metrics, and every one of those will give you insight into how effective your communication strategy is being, and give you ideas of how to adapt as well. Qualitative feedback is more to do with the feedback you're getting from the people. So 360-degree feedback, we mentioned that earlier, didn't we? How well are the leaders communicating? Ask the employees and get their anonymous feedback. You can do one-on-one interviews or conduct focus groups that give you deeper insights into communication challenges, particularly if you ask an outsider to help you with some of those things, because often employees will be more honest with an outsider than they will with a direct line manager. And then you can also make sure that you make full use of exit interviews. When an employee leaves, make sure you can identify any communication breakdowns that maybe impacted your ability to retain that employee. It may not be an issue, but if it is, you certainly want to know about it so that you can address it for the future. And then the behavioral indicators, this is more observation, where you're observing the actions and the results that are coming from your communication strategies. So questions that you can ask yourself, like, are our teams consistently aligned on our goals and our priorities, or are they distracted with other things? Is there a reduction in miscommunication issues in the company? Are there fewer misunderstandings, or are there still conflicts or need to do rework on different things because there's been a misunderstanding? And have we been able to increase cross-team collaboration? Is there more proactive information sharing? Is there more problem solving going on? It may be that you need to make structural changes. I know some of the most successful companies have a rule that their teams must not be too big. I believe it was Google that established a one pizza team size. If one pizza is not enough to feed the team meeting, the team is too big. You can get a greater sense of collaboration when teams are smaller like that. But with all of those behavioral indicators, the Communication IQ tool is very helpful to add depth to that measurement strategy, as well as being valuable in the qualitative feedback, the employee feedback that we talked about previously. So I'd encourage you to, if you haven't already, research with me the Communication IQ tool to see how it can add to your company's communication skills and help your communication increase your performance, increase your bottom line, build your profitability, but also help you with customer engagement and employee retention. So that's it for this series. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please go back and check the archives for other areas that are not specifically branded for the C-suite, but will be very valuable to you. And let me know how I can be of help to you going forward. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean a lot to me if you'd rate and review the podcast so it helps more listeners to find us. But also, would you give me your feedback on things you'd like to hear about in future episodes? And remember to share the episode with a friend if you see something that would benefit them as well. You can reach me with feedback through my website at markburlinson.com. Just click on the contact button and send me a message. I respond to everyone personally, and I really want to hear from you. So thank you again for listening, sharing, reviewing, and giving me your feedback.